Are you ready for the tiniest pieces of justice with the biggest amounts of entertainment? Yeah? Awesome. Then it's time for some more petty revenge. Her neighbors are constantly accusing this lady and her children of damaging their property, but the tables are turned when they need her help. What revenge will she take against them? Our fan-submitted story. A teenage girl is always volunteered by her mother to babysit her bratty cousins. When she decides she finally has had enough of their horrible behavior, she does something a little bit petty, but a lot of crazy. What's a great way to stop an entitled parent from getting their way? Delivering a bit of petty revenge on them and watching them squirm. That's what this fast food worker does when an entitled mother lies to try and get her way. How does the fast food worker get her revenge? You'll only find out by watching this episode of VoiceyHere's Petty Revenge. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode, and let's get straight into it. This story was called "Threatened to Lie and Accuse My Kids of Damaging Your Car." I think I'll keep my camera footage of your car actually being hit. I was living in an apartment with just myself and my two daughters. There was no assigned parking, and myself and the people who lived below me often ended up parking in spots fairly close to each other. I had just purchased my first non-beta car, so I was being very cautious about how I parked it. Not bumping into anything, parking too close to the line, etc. The neighbors, however, constantly parked right on the edge, crooked, sometimes over the line. One night, I came home from work, and all the spots in front of the apartments we lived in were empty. I remembered this because it was odd and kind of a cool, I don't have to squeeze in or park a mile away moment. The next morning, me and my girls leave to go grocery shopping. My neighbor's car is parked next to ours, and there is a very large, noticeable scratch and dent on its door. It honestly looked like someone had intentionally slammed their door into it repeatedly. We get home and are carrying up our groceries up the stairs. It takes a few trips. After the last trip, I'm in the doorway and one of my daughters comes racing up behind me. "Mommy, there's a lady asking," my other daughter's name, "a bunch of questions, even though she said she can't talk to her." I'm big on the don't talk to strangers thing, so I head down and ask what I can do for her, and the conversation basically goes as follows. There's me, my neighbor, and my neighbor's boyfriend or husband. "Can I help you?" "I think your kid may have hit my car with your car door. Maybe she didn't, but she refuses to answer me, so she seems guilty." "Well, first of all, my daughter doesn't know you, and she doesn't have to answer you. In fact, I'm going to ask you to not speak to my daughters unless I'm present, or I give you permission. Secondly, my daughters are 10. I don't allow them to get into my car without me. I can assure you, they haven't hit your car. In fact, I always stress to them to be careful when opening their door, because people often park close." "When do you think this happened?" "Last night, and you're not with your kid every time they open the door. No one is. It could have happened when they were getting something out of it." "Well, since I live on the 3rd floor, I actually don't let my kids go get things out of the car without me. I'm just not comfortable being unable to get them quickly if something were to happen. And last night we parked before you got home and remained parked all night until we left this morning for groceries. The dent was already there when we left, so it wasn't my car that hit yours. Sorry." "Your car is white and the paint left on my door is white. It's obviously yours. Your kids did this." I point out that there isn't a single scuff on any of my doors, including the inside that would have hit. I also open my door and show her that where my door would have hit her car door is above where her damage was. I have an SUV and she had a small, low-to-the-ground sedan. So even if you don't believe me that my kids aren't allowed in my car unsupervised, it couldn't have been my car that did this damage." She begins getting very angry and loud at this point. "I don't care. You're the only one around here with kids. I see them almost hit other cars all the time, and you park too close to other cars. You need to start parking further away. If it happens again, I'll get your insurance involved." "Okay, we're done here. Do what you think you need to." I start to head upstairs and her boyfriend comes out and blocks my way. "What did she say?" my neighbor was yelling angrily. "She's trying to say it wasn't them. She's trying to lie and say her kids don't get in the car without her. That's bullcrap. We see them almost hit lots of cars. You need to move. I've explained to her that it couldn't have been my car. You need to get out of my way now and let me pass. Nah, it was yours. The paint is white. You got kids. We see him hit other cars. You literally just said you've seen them almost hit other cars. Now you're saying that you've seen them actually hit cars? Neither is true. At this point, I simply move to the next stairwell over and start heading up. My neighbor is now screaming at me. No, you need to take responsibility for what your kids do. If you're not going to pay me, I need your insurance information now. You don't need and are not getting my insurance information because I wasn't involved in any kind of accident or contact with your vehicle. You really need to stop screaming at me. We both pay a lot to live here, as do all of our neighbors. No one needs to hear irate screaming in the parking lot. We saw your kids do it. We are going to call the cops and we're going to tell everyone here how your kids hit their cars too. Anyone who has a scratch is going to know to come to you. At this point, I turned the voice record feature on my phone. That was the first time you've said you saw my kids do that. You are literally making things up now. You can't go around door to door here. It's against community rules in the lease that everyone has to abide by. And you can't just go around lying because you want someone to fix your car. You're going to take responsibility, or we will tell everyone you hit their cars. I shut the door and called the police myself to explain the situation, because after they lied and changed their story to that they actually saw my kids hit their car, I was worried that they would make that report. The apartment complex management wasn't there on weekends, but I told them the following Monday. They assured me that they couldn't do what they threatened and told me not to worry about it and said they'd give them a verbal warning. The police came and I played the recording for them and showed them how my car had no damage and my doors didn't even line up with their damage. The neighbors went inside and shut their door when they saw the police pull up. The police basically told me I had nothing to worry about, and it sounded more like they were trying to get someone to cover their damage, since they didn't know who did it and were trying to use intimidation to get me to cave. They knocked on the neighbor's door and explained to them that they can't physically stop me from trying to get into my apartment or harass me, and that they were going to give me a report because it sounded like they may be trying to commit insurance fraud. They attempted to tell the officers that they saw my kids hit their car, but they weren't having any of it. After that, I started taking pictures and video of my car and theirs every time I parked. A couple times they came out yelling that I'm not allowed to film their car without permission. I just blew that off. That got really tedious, but it was clear they weren't letting go of their grudge against me and my kids. So I invested in a cheap security camera. I put it in the window facing the parking lot below. I would skim it real fast overnight, or if I was parked during the day for several hours. I just sped it up really fast looking for when they parked their car. One day I pulled up and they were out on their porch. I started to walk upstairs and they made snarky comments like, "Oh, you're not going to get out and video everything?" I actually wanted them to know that my car was still being filmed, so they knew they couldn't make crap up. So I said in the friendliest, non-sarcastic tone I could muster, "Nope, don't need to. I have a camera in my window doing it for me." This was a mistake because they started flipping out, demanding to know where the camera catches and ranting that I can't film them on their porch. The camera didn't catch their porch. And demanding that I show them where all was being filmed and that if I didn't take it down, they'd have me arrested, blah blah blah. I mentioned that they'd already been warned by the apartment complex management to stop contacting me and that I really didn't want to have to report them, but if they continued to harass me, I would. Fast forward a few months, and a large service van backs into their parked car and drives off. It caused significant damage. My camera caught it all. They actually knocked on my door asking if I had it. And honestly, had they been polite, I probably would have helped them out. But they basically just immediately started demanding that I check my camera and that if I wouldn't, it was probably because it was me. Blah blah blah. I let them know that I would be deleting the footage and not to contact me again. They tried to say that if I did it, it was a crime, since it was evidence of a crime, and they were going to call the cops on me. Nothing else ever happened. But it's one of those few times in my life I have ever not helped someone when I was in a position to, and I don't feel bad at all. This fan-submitted story was called "Swirled My Way Out of Babysitting." This story actually falls into multiple categories. It qualified for entitled parents and choosing beggars, but it was more about petty revenge. So here we are. I was 13 at the time, and my mum basically pimped me out to the family as a free or low-cost babysitter all the time. She did it so she'd look good for doing her Christian service, but she never offered to babysit herself. The biggest taker of this offer was my deadbeat aunt. She never worked, and she went out every single chance she got, usually when her truck driver husband was on the road, to have flings with various men. So one particular day she got her chance to spend a couple of hours with her boyfriend at the time at a sleazy motel. No pay of course, but hey, I'm family, right? Why should she pay me? She lived about a mile away from us, so I wasn't even offered a ride to her house. I had to walk. Not a big deal, as long as it was only for the 2 hours she promised. Her 3 kids are Satan's spawn from 3 different dads, and the baby is 4 and the biggest brat. He was his mum's favourite and she spoiled him rotten, so spending anything more than 2 hours with them was torture. So, let the torture begin. I'm in charge of feeding the kids, so I put the only thing in the freezer in the oven. Pizza rolls, their favourite. And 20 minutes later, the kids are fed and playing on a game system. I'm sitting in the living room, trying to catch up on the homework I had needed to complete before my mum generously offered my services. 2 hours turns into 3, then 3 hours turns to 4. 6 hours into this nightmare. The kids have gotten tired of the game. I've had to give up all hope of finishing my homework to keep them occupied, and they're hungry again. Only problem is, I have nothing to feed them. They snacked on the pizza rolls until they're all gone, and I don't know what to do. I find some toaster pastries in a cupboard finally, but the 4-year-old is having none of it. He comes up to me and screams, "Give me a hot dog!" I grimace and tell him, "Your mother didn't leave us any hot dogs. This is all we have in the house. If you don't want it, you'll have to wait for her, got it?" Yes, I know I was harsh, considering he was 4, but this kid had worn me down, and I was tired of his crap after a year of free childcare, whenever she wanted it. I was their human punching bag most times when she was gone, and if I so much as touched a hair on their heads, or tried to discipline them in any way, I got punished. It had all come to a head, and what the kid did next made me blow sky high. "Give me a hot dog, now!" With the ferociousness I had never seen in a 4-year-old child, he reared back and kicked me, full on in the knee. I cried out, tears filling my eyes, and the other kids laughing like idiots because they made me cry, even though it was the pain that forced the tears. The laughter, the little brat pointing at me and congratulating himself on a good kick, and the past year finally caught up with me, and tears turned into rage. "You little brat!" I screamed, and caught him before he was able to run away. I carried him into their bathroom, the one nearest the front door to the house. They lived in a trailer, so it was a strange configuration. I held him upside down over the toilet and flushed. As I'm lowering him, the other 2 yanked at my shirt, begging me to put him down. His mum finally walks into the door. She screams at me to put her baby down, comes toward me as if to hit me, but I dodged her, grabbed up my homework in the living room, and ran out the back door. For the record, I had no intention of putting his head in the toilet. I just wanted to put the fear of God into him, so he and his siblings would stop treating me like a slave. I looked back to see her cradling her little diddums, screaming at me to come back so she could beat me the way I deserved. But instead I ran all the way home, just in time to find my mum holding the phone and giving me a death glare. She said, "I hope you're happy," to which I replied simply, "Yes, yes I am," and went to my room. I got yelled at for the rest of the night through my locked bedroom door. She threatened to take everything I owned away, threatened to beat me the moment I came out of the room, and probably would have done so if my dad hadn't come out on my side. He comes in from a long day of fishing, finds out what happened, and says, "Good for her. That kid is a brat. He probably deserved it." It was enough to shut her up for good on the matter. I didn't get punished, and as a special side effect, I never had to babysit for my awful aunt again. And every time my little cousin saw me at my family gatherings, he stayed on the other side of the room at all times. 20 years later, I'm still proud of that moment, even though I probably shouldn't be. Oh, and my cousin? He turned out to be a pretty great guy once he got away from his mum. And these days, he doesn't remember the night he almost got his first swirly. I can see why the submitter of this story thought that this could fit into both entitled parents and choosing beggars. The fact that the mother thought it was her Christian service to volunteer her daughter's time, I think shows one of the biggest problems that the church is going through right now. It's this weird adoption of altruism that believes, well, because this is for the greater good, if I forced you to do it, then I'm doing a good thing. People can sense hypocrisy from a mile away. That's why the mother had no right to be mad. She never volunteered her time, and she thought it was a good thing to volunteer her daughter's time. This story was called Mother Knows Best. Yeah, okay. So I used to work in a fast food place in a mall where based off how many items you choose for your meal, that's your total. All of our meats have at least one type of vegetable with them because the franchise wanted people to eat more of them, health, etc. So if you asked for chicken, we have to scoop you some veggies that's in there because it's our job, and to be fair to other customers, otherwise they'd be left with just veggies until the next batch was ready. Anyway, we have plenty of people that ask for no veggies with their meats, but we inform them we have to, and tell them the reason why, and they're usually understanding. Usually. It's stupid, but my manager told us that if someone is having a hissy fit, just let them have it their way, because it's not worth the hassle. Okay. This lady comes up to me and I greet her as usual. She orders a meal and asks for chicken. I scoop the chicken with veggies into her box and she speaks up. "Oh, sorry, I don't want any veggies with the chicken." I tell her the same spiel. "Haha, well it's for my child and he doesn't like them." The same spiel with an apology. The lady becomes visibly annoyed. "He's allergic to these veggies." Who is this lady trying to fool? We take allergies very seriously because we do work with nut oils, and I know she was lying to get her way. Don't joke about allergies you don't have because you ruin it for people who actually do. There's a line forming behind her now, maybe about 2 people. They all heard her and they looked annoyed too. Commence pettiness. Allergic? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Would you be interested in these options instead? The veggies are touching the chicken and I don't want to get your child sick. She's surprised and stammers. "Oh no, he just can't eat the veggies. Touching is fine." Are you sure? We take allergies very seriously here. She's looking around, kind of panicking. "Yup, I'm sure. I'm his mother." I take my sweet time picking out veggies from the scoops of chicken, and now there's 4 people behind her. She sees the line and sees me carefully taking out said veggies. "Well, a bit of veggies is okay." Clearly trying to get out of there as soon as possible. "Ma'am, don't worry about it. I'll make sure to take all the veggies out." Allergies are taken seriously here. She has a mixture of panic from making the people behind her wait and annoyance because I'm taking my time. Maybe don't freaking lie about stuff like that. It was nice too because my coworkers started helping the people behind her, so they were obviously trying to get around the lady blocking the front. I also have a bone to pick with people who fake allergies for food preference reasons. In my family there are members who have food allergies, and it's frustrating because people who serve you food are always suspicious because of people like this. So if there's a food preference you want to make, just tell them it's a preference. Or maybe someday, the person serving you food will take their petty revenge against you. This story was called The Only Time I Wanted a Baby to Keep Crying on an Airplane. As soon as we got on the plane, I knew this guy was going to be trouble. Let's call him Paul. Paul was blocking the way, having half his body in the aisle, rearranging his backpack for whatever reason, when no one was next to him and he could have just done this in his seat. No big deal, I'll just wait for him to be done. Then Paul insists on me walking around him, which with him being half in the aisle makes it quite hard. My body brushes up against his body, which made him mad even though he told me to go through. Of course, everyone else is trying to board the plane as well, and are running into the same issue, and Paul is taking his sweet time. Whatever. My boyfriend and I got the row behind him and sat down awaiting the plane to take off. The next offense is when someone is trying to put their bag in the overhead bin, and Paul goes ape. Starts yelling at this woman that there is glass in his bag, and that she can't put her luggage there. She calmly tells Paul that this space is for everyone, and she needs to put her bag there as there is no more room in the other compartments. Paul's wife doesn't think this woman is getting the point, so they start yelling how they're custom wine glasses and that she cannot put her bags there. I was giving this woman props. She stood on the seat to gently rearrange things and kept her calm the entire time despite being yelled at. Of course, this was not good enough for Paul and his wife, who kept muttering under their breath about how stupid she was and that she was going to ruin their glasses. When we finally get in the air, the baby 1 row behind me, 2 rows behind Paul, starts crying. The baby wasn't even crying 30 seconds before Paul decides to yell, "Give that kid a bottle!" The parents obviously ignore this and calm down their child within a minute or so. Now, throughout the flight, the baby cried a couple more times, each time lasting no longer than 3 minutes. A very good baby. Paul, however, was not pleased, and each time the baby cried, he'd turn around and give the parents the stink eye, then get up and walk around. I kept hoping the baby would cry, just so he'd have to listen to it. I'm a very shy person, so I wasn't about to confront him, and my boyfriend, who was in the seat behind him, had his headphones on and wasn't aware of what was going on. So I hatch a plan for my petty revenge to make his plane ride as unpleasant as possible. What did I do? I clued in my boyfriend on the situation and had him join my cause. He opened and shut the tray table multiple times for his laptop. He sat with his knees in Paul's seat. He kept putting his water bottle in the pocket behind the seat and taking it out. I kept accidentally hitting his seat when I would go to cross my legs. I turned my AC on full blast and pointed it his way. I ate my chips as loudly and slowly as possible. I coughed multiple times very loudly. All of this would make Paul stare at us and then complain to his wife. "I hope your custom wine glasses broke, you jerk." Paul and his wife seem to be the exact people that, if they had a child, they would be the definition of an entitled parent. They just unfortunately don't have the kid as an excuse. And why would you bring custom wine glasses onto a plane in a way that's not going to mean that they're secure in the bag? If you haven't put them in a box with styrofoam, then your foolishness probably means you deserve to have them broken. At the very least, just to teach you a lesson. If you'd like your story to be narrated by me, don't forget to visit the subreddit r/VoiceyHere, link below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.